We're happy to be talking with Michael Whan, the commissioner of the LPGA Tour, who, like everyone else in the world, is working from home right now. Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm not sure my wife and kids agree. I think they're ready for me to go back to work, but I'm all good here.
Listen, I want to talk a little bit about the LPGA Tour. You have been just devastated this year. Since you took over in 2010, the tour has been growing and growing and growing. 2020 was set up to be the biggest year yet. Record purses, number of tournaments, a lot of good stuff happening, and boom, the coronavirus hits. How disappointing is it to you personally and your staff that this pandemic has just kind of brought things to a halt?
Well, it's beyond me personally and certainly beyond my staff. I mean, I've got, young athletes from all over the world that probably have waited their whole life to make it to this stage. And those rookies probably played once or twice so far and have been sitting since January. So that's tough for me. I mean, it was an Olympic year, so that the buzz within the LPGA and player dining was probably bigger than ever because everybody, everybody who's been to Rio know how good it was, and everybody who hasn't had heard about how good it was. So those were the same things, as you say, biggest purse in TV or ever. So, I mean, I think from a standpoint of really making a name for yourself, busting on a scene. I mean, the fact that it came right after our off season, I just know how hard these athletes work and how hard the caddies work and the coaches. And it's tough to not give them the opportunity. In the grand scope of things, it's hard to whine and cry foul because the whole world is taking a step aside. So it's, we're not the only ones, but still tough. We got fans from 165 countries that watch us every week on TV, and I'm frustrated that I can't give them what they want to watch.
I know you've been working tirelessly to figure out a schedule for the rest of the year. A lot of tournaments have already been canceled. A lot have been rescheduled. The Korean LPGA is set to go back at the middle of May. I think you're shooting for a June 14th return date. Any new news you can share with us on that?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm excited to see what's going on in both South Korea and China. When we first started canceling events, and we had an event in China, one in Thailand, and one in Singapore in February, we decided to cancel all three of those. Back then, it was probably because what we didn't know about COVID-19. It was fairly new and uncertain, and what we were hearing was concerning enough to kind of put it on hold. Now we've been canceling events based on what we do know, obviously, about COVID-19. But it's exciting. As I talk to my friends in China, the factories are open, the people are going back to work, and people are gathering again. And the same is starting to be the case in Korea with the KLPGA. I know the Korean men's Major League Baseball is going to start at the end of May. So I'm excited to think that 2 months ago where they were and 2 months where they are now. So when I flip that to America or Europe and think if we're about a month behind them, that's fairly exciting in terms of what it could mean for our schedule this summer.
We've got a couple of big events coming up here in the Midwest. The Toledo, the Marathon Classic, the Meijer Classic. The Meijer Classic was actually going to be held the week before you want to return at the Walmart now in Arkansas. Is that got a new date yet for the Meijer?
Yeah, when I announced the changes and to start on June 15th, one of the things I told the players, which was true and still is, that both of our June events, the Walmart Northwest Arkansas and KPMG Women's PGA, both already have secured later fall dates in case June isn't feasible to play an event the way they and we want to play an event. So I've still said from the beginning I'm holding out for June 15th, but probably more realistic to early July. And if that'd be the case in early July, that means we'd really start in Toledo and then be in Midland, Michigan, and it'd be a great place for us to start in events that are as liked as much as they are. In Meijer's case, playing in June, I mean, Meijer's is so involved in the community and what's going on in terms of not only keeping food on people's tables, but helping food banks and United Ways and everything else that we knew pretty early in those discussions we needed to get out of their way in June. We are evaluating fall dates for them, and things are moving so fast, knowing that they're really probably not going to play until late September. Those aren't ones we've, to be honest with you, July and August have been our focus right now. But I do think Meijer can play later in the year. And like I said, if we don't get Arkansas and Aronimink, which is where we'll play the women's KPMG, off in June, they both already have pre-established later dates in the season.
Also, the USGA has already announced that the Women's Open has moved on out to clear out to December, actually. Right. So you're going to have golf, if you can go in June or at the beginning of July, you're going to have golf right through the end of the year.
Yeah, I've told players to plan on, when we start playing, plan on playing till Christmas. We're probably going to play until December 20th. Will probably be our last Sunday that we play. We'll take the week of Thanksgiving off, but I don't know if we'll have any other off weeks other than that. So yeah, they're going to be busy. You know, they're going to have to pick and choose their own schedule, but we want to give them as much golf, as much starts, and as much opportunity as we can as soon as we think it's safe to play. I've said this from the beginning, and this isn't a cop-out, it's just true, which is, you know, every fiber in my body is competitive, and I want to win. I want to be the first out there. I want to show you how sports can play. But as both players and staff and people I trust have counseled me, and I do trust them, you know, because they know me. And I've had a player said to me about a week ago, "Hey, Mike, I know you want to be first back, but winning in this situation doesn't mean first across the finish line. Let's make sure we can do it right." So even my 25-year-olds are counseling their 55-year-old commissioner to do the right thing, not necessarily do the fast thing.
Well, the LPGA was really hurt so much. I mean, you had to cancel so many events. You've really only had two, where at least the PGA Tour has had like 22 events already this year. But from the LPGA, from the ladies' standpoint, their ability to create an income this year has sorely been depleted.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do the wraparound season, so we start in January and end in November on a typical LPGA season. So we had just started in January, played 4 events, and then, you know, there we were. About to fly to China, Thailand, Singapore. I've said this many times, you know, we knew what coronavirus was before America was putting it in any newspapers or cable shows, because we were learning about it in the marketplaces where it was really, you know, it was really beginning. And unfortunately for us, that means, you know, since February 1, we've been sitting on the sidelines waiting for the, you know, for the green light to get back in. So yeah, this is going to be a strange season. As I've said many times, 2020 will not be a regular season. It'll be the year of the asterisks for the LPGA. Whether that means we'll still be able to get an official season in, or whether that means 2020 will become part of a 2021 wraparound kind of 2-year, 1 season, is still to be determined based on when we get back and how often we can play when we get back. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to start on, you know, July 6th. It's another thing to believe that we're going to start on July 6th and play week in and week out all the way through December, because we play in so many different countries, so many different regions. Every government is going to have their own perspective. All the travel bans are things we're going to have to navigate. So it's not a given that when we start, we can just continue to play. So I'm not exactly sure how 2020 will play out as it relates to a season. It may be, in worst case scenario, just part of a 2021 season, which will actually be a bigger season than we ever envisioned, but certainly longer if it takes 2 years to complete.
Michael, a lot of your work involves touching base with sponsors and keeping them in the loop and working with them. What's the temperature of the sponsors going forward and all the changes that have had to be made?
I wouldn't say there's a standard answer for that. You know, in the course of 35 different title sponsors, I wouldn't say there's 35 different answers, but there's certainly 7 or 8 different answers, depending on where they are in their business, where they play their event. You know, really impacts how bullish you're feeling right now. Some regions of the world are saying we don't want to talk about sports till, you know, June, July, or August. Some regions of the world are already starting to kind of come back. So it's difficult. If I talk to BMW Korea versus if I talk to, you know, Medihill, which plays their events in San Francisco, right now you get 2 totally different perspectives about the future in terms of when you could play. So we really have to take it one at a time. You know, when we have a sponsor who's both capable of moving into a date we have and the venue that they've secured is as well. As you know, we play on golf courses, and so fans don't understand this. But for me to say, hey, I'm not going to play the Kia Classic in March, but I'm going to play it in September. And by the way, it's at Aviara Park Hyatt on a cliff overlooking Carlsbad, California, where they probably have 4 weddings every Friday and Saturday. For me to block out the hotel, block out the golf course, easy to say, but I really have to make sure that all the venues work. I mean, does it work for the title sponsor? Does it work for the tournament operator? Does it work for the hotel and golf course? And can it work for our TV partners, not just here in America, but all over the world? So you have so many different stakeholders in any one given tournament move. There's a reason why we're typically working on our schedule 2 years from now. And so to be working on a schedule that's 2 months from now is pretty new sledding for me. I mean, it's, you know, you're usually trying to figure out great dates for 2023, not July 23. So it's a very different year.
I think I heard something that you said earlier in an interview or something, that you might even be holding 2 tournaments simultaneously. Is that a possibility, or any other changes that we might look forward to through the end of the year here?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see some things that you didn't expect to see when we launched our 2020 schedule, and probably some things that we've never done before. I'm not really sure if that really means two tournaments. What I mean by that is, if a tournament really can't play for whatever reason, some of them have said to us, you know, what would happen if we were to give our purse to you and you could apply that purse to other events?
Wow.
So you could see an event playing for a much larger purse than we announced when we announced the 2020 season, because a couple of other events couldn't play, but they were willing to provide their purse so that we could provide it in other events. So I think one of the things I'm fairly confident in saying is, no matter when we start and no matter how many events we play, we will play for significantly more per start on average than you thought when we started 2020. Meaning, we typically, an average purse in our tour is about $2 or $2.1 million per start. We'll play for a higher average than that when we get started in 2020, simply because our majors will probably play and they're a bigger percentage of the purse. And then B, some of the events have given us the ability to take their purse and provide it to other events that can play. So the net result to the players is they may not get as many starts, but the dollar opportunity per start may be better than ever before.
I know another thing that's really near and dear to your heart is the charities that are serviced by all these events in these communities. These charities really count on that money. And so to get these events going, not only for the ladies to make some money, but for these charities to get the money in those communities is really important to you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody who's not having a tough year in 2020, but it's really a tough year for charities, because when everybody's watching themselves financially and not sure about the future, the last thing a lot of people are doing is writing big checks to charity, and that's concerning. So us playing can be a source of income that's really key for these folks. I do think that all of our tournaments will probably make less money in 2020 than they ever thought when the year began, because combination of fans and other sponsors and everything else is really challenged. But if we can play and can turn some money back to these local charities, it's, for a lot of these local charities, we're a significant difference maker in their budget. So the ability to play and the ability to kind of leave it better in these marketplaces has really probably never been higher, because they're probably hurting in other sources of revenue. And we'd like to see if we could make sure we're not one of those hurting sources.
Michael, I'm sure it's a challenging year for you. I know you'll get through it as you always do. And as always, we wish you a lot of luck going forward. And we'll be watching when you guys get to tee it up again.
Yeah, I'll tell you the same thing I tell my players at the end of every video I leave them, which is, we've been around for 70 years. COVID-19 is not the worst thing we've seen, and probably isn't the worst thing we will see. And, it was a sucker punch to all of us that nobody saw coming, but it's not going to stumble the LPGA. We're a strong franchise, and we're going to take our hits just like a lot of other franchises are. But when we're back, we won't be back weaker or less version of ourselves. We'll be back just as strong as we ever were. And for our fans around the world, I apologize for the break in the action, but we'll be back just as soon as we think it's safe for us and for the folks who come watch us.
Michael, thanks for taking a minute to talk to us.
Thanks for covering us. We appreciate it.